Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that you are still sitting here this hour, it means that you mean business about listening to the youth, and we appreciate that. The theme for this session, youth access to finance, links directly with the theme of, the IFAD Governing Council of, rural innovation and entrepreneurship. We're starting later than we anticipated, and we know that when the climate changes, we adapt. So we're going to adapt, and we're not going to be standing between you and the reception. We'll try to adapt and make sure that things are faster. We know the challenges of the youth. I'm not going to say much about it, but what I want to indicate is that amidst the complexities and the challenges, we have young people out there who are making a difference, who are taking agriculture as their career of choice, and we have to celebrate them. So this session, it's not about young people coming to tell you about the challenges and problems, but they are coming to share with you what they are doing on the ground. And we have to celebrate them, we have to support them, and use them as role models if we want to attract youth into the agricultural sector. In the morning, Sherry said, we are the youth and we are the future. So, very soon we'll be bringing 4 futures, because they're the youth who will ascend the stage. I would like them to come over. In that process, yes, please come over. When you welcome the future, we need a big round of applause. I think we can do better. Okay, before I introduce them, we would like to play a video from Nigeria that demonstrates how IFAD is actually bridging the gap with some experiences there. The video from Nigeria, it's a 2-minute video, just to allow our panelists to get settled.
Before I'm a graduate, I didn't have any work, but with the coming of this project, I was trained as rice seed producer. I produce a certified seed which will improve the yield of the crop in this community. The challenge that we youths in this area face is financial aspect. That's my main challenge before starting the business. We have microfinance bank here. I go through my cooperative to obtain my first loan, which I use in my first production. I was able to produce, I return it back to them. Then I was able to save from what I had been getting from that field for next production. We usually used to use our hand to do land preparation, but now we have so many mechanization that it will ease our farming activity. Some of the machines, we buy them using our money, which we save in the cooperative, while some of them it was given us as a grant. Mobile banking has helped me a lot in my business because I don't have to be moving around with cash. The moment someone bought my product, they will send money into my account. Whenever I went to the bank, my transaction using mobile banking, so that they will see the money that is coming in and also the money that is going out. That will give me access to the loan that I'm inquiring from them. Since all these things are available, some youth have started coming back, and also they have started engaging themselves in farming activity. I've employed 20 youths temporary, and also I have 5 youth that are working with me permanently. I want to remain in this business because there is a lot in it.
Thank you very much. We can see from the video that when the youth are given an opportunity, they can actually do it for themselves. I would like to introduce my panelists here. I'll start here. We have, Ndiokam Divine, all the way from Cameroon. He's a managing director for a climate smart agriculture youth network, and he's wearing many hats. He's also a vice president of the Continental Youth in Livestock, Fisheries, and Aquaculture Incubation Network. One thing about him, he promotes, the SDGs. Something that is so special about the work that he does. He's been leading, an innovation or an intervention where they translate, the SDGs into more than 60 local languages where he actually engages the youth. Welcome, Divine. Our second speaker, it's a very interesting one. She's coming all the way from Kenya, and her name is Anne Nyaga. Anne is the youngest minister of the county in Kenya, responsible for agriculture, cooperative development, livestock, and fisheries in Kenya. She's also a co-founder of the 4-H movement or foundation in Kenya, and she's an entrepreneur and a farmer. She's wearing many hats. Our next panelist there, all the way from Mexico, and her name is Dali Nolasco. Dali is a special panelist here in the sense that, she's bringing the voice of the indigenous women. Back in her country, she's a director of the Timor Platinum, an intercultural association, and she advocates a lot for the indigenous women and indigenous voices in her country. Last but not least, over there, we have Jim Cano. He's coming all the way from the Philippines. Jim is part of the University of the Philippines, but also he's a leader. I've met Jim in many occasions. He's the country representative of the Young Professionals in Agricultural Development, IFAD. He's also a contact person for the Youth Working Group for the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services. Thank you very much for gracing our stage and allowing yourself to share your experiences. Okay, now I'm going to give my panelists 3 to 4 minutes just to tell us briefly what they do and focusing on the experiences that they have. Divine, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Lami, for this opportunity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity as some people to express ourselves. Yeah, as the moderator said earlier on, what actually encouraged me to get into agriculture is after my graduate studies, I realized that there was an issue of unemployment, and also passionate about seeing how I could actually create job for myself. That gave me an opportunity to set up the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, which is right now in 41 countries, headquartered in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Looking at the theme of today, which is access to finance, it's no more, the bad news has been there's no access to finance. It's difficult for young people to get money for their projects, to get into the agricultural domain. But today, the good news is there are very, very key strategies in which young people are actually getting access to finance. I'm going to shortlist 3 points here. One, which is value addition. Many years back, we produce, but we don't actually leverage the products to market because we don't actually know the community needs. But right now, adding value to the product, for example, we have the honey which can be transformed and actually, produce the value added to come up with the cream or soap, for example. We have the branding and the packaging. At times when I go to supermarkets, I want to know where the product is from. But right now in Cameroon, we have Cameroon-made products, and that actually encourages young people to produce more and actually create more jobs for other young people, and giving a component for them to get access to finance, because when they sell, when they add value to the product becomes much more costly than earlier before. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is innovation. Just some few weeks back in Kenya, I came up with one of my team members. We was actually developing a strategy, the F3 Life, which gives an opportunity for young people to access credit at very low interest rates. And one of the criteria for these young people to be able to access this finance, they should be climate smart. They should actually address the challenges faced by agricultural sector. That's why we talk of climate smart agriculture. I have the triple wins, which is mitigation, adaptation, and improving productivity for the smallholder farmer.
Okay.
The next thing we thought equally very, very important. How, now I'm in agriculture, how do I ensure that other young people actually get involved into the agricultural sector? Happy to be here. We really, together with the excellencies here, to transform the rural communities into rural cities. Yeah. Yeah, transforming the rural communities into rural cities. What do I mean by this? If a young person in an X or Y community, for example, let's say in Gemenduka in the east region of Cameroon, if he finds himself having good access to education in that community, I don't see why he has to come to Yaoundé to get a job. So I think that this is an appeal to all the excellencies here. Let's try to invest much more in ensuring that we encourage rural financing in our various constituencies, and in this case in Cameroon and other countries, part of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And what's your story?
Thank you. Good evening, Your Excellencies. As you've heard, my story goes back in 2008, and I actually wear many hats, and where I actually am is because of the gradual learning that I've been doing in the sector. In 2008, I actually resigned from my work that I had only been signed up for 9 months. And I like the flexibility of agriculture and the flexibility in terms of the employment hours, and then also in terms of the income. I could control the income. So I decided to just quit my job and start the line of agriculture. Along the way, my fellow youth would actually contact me, not only in Kenya, but all over Africa, requesting me to support them in terms of extension services, basically knowledge sharing. A very interesting call I received from a gentleman called Hussein from Somalia that actually influenced the kind of engagements that I did from that moment on. Hussein called me from Somalia, telling me that he had planted tomatoes on a 5 acre of land. And it had been 3 weeks and the tomatoes had not germinated. So instantly I asked Hussein, what was your method of propagation? And Hussein told me when the tractor was busy making furrows, his farm people, together with him, came putting the small seeds in the furrows. For those of us who know basic agricultural practices, we do not propagate small seeds like that. But again, I do not blame Hussein. I kind of faulted ourselves because of these are basic information and basic practices that should be common to all of us. That one is what influenced me to start the 4H Foundation Kenya, which is one of the 73 country-led programs that focus on youth development. And one of the things that 4H Kenya does is introduce children to agriculture at very young ages, at 6 years, so that they interact with agriculture in a way that they understand. And of course, the programming is usually designed to address the problems of that particular time. Like in our case, we like addressing the issue of savings in young children through the agricultural clubs, because we need them to know how to manage the little that they have. We also have the issue of food security. We need our children, because they are consumers of what they eat every day. They need to have every business in knowing how food is produced, and basically getting them to interact with the sector in a way that they basically understand. We make it fun for them, but mostly we let them lead the process. The other issue on 27th of, on 2017, I got appointed to be on a policy level in my county. That made me the youngest minister serving agriculture in the whole country nationally. I was the youngest. So that one made me realize the kind of responsibility I had. Because when you talk about issues of access to finance, someone like Hussein, when he lost all the money that he had actually saved up to be able to propagate the tomatoes, he made actually a loss. He lost money in the input he had put, the farm inputs that he had invested in. He lost money in labor. But what cushion mechanism does someone like Hussein have? There was no cushion mechanism at that time. If anything, as a private sector person, I only tried to introduce him to people who would fund him back for seeds, and also try and see which subsidies we could be able to access in terms of the fertilizers and all that. But I wish I would do something more for the likes of Hussein that time. But nevertheless, now that I sit on a policy level, I'm actually able now to do something on a bigger scale. Something not only for the youth of my county, but also for the youth of the whole nation at large. That gives me a responsibility. So the issue of access to finance, I recently developed what we're calling the county-specific youth in agribusiness strategy, and I would share it with anyone who may want to have a look at it. And the strategy addresses 11 strategic issues that we have to deal with concurrently, from introducing the young child who's 6 years old to agriculture at the same time when we are addressing the issues facing that youth who is already 18 to 35. All these things, we have to do them concurrently so that in future we don't come back to actually try to convince them at that time, and we had the opportunity now. The issue of access to finance is one of the components of the strategy, but my strong belief is we have to couple up and address all these issues at the same time. They may not affect all the youth at the same time. You'll find that there's a youth who has more of access to finance needs, and maybe they need knowledge on extension and so forth. But we have to find out a very comprehensive approach to how we engage them and how we implement these strategies. Lastly, as I close, I'd like to say that most of the time we keep on saying that the youth have refused to join the sector. I'm actually on the ground and I can comfortably say that was valid in 2011. The youth are in the sector and they're struggling and they need each and every support that we can give them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dali, in 4 minutes, tell us your story.
Hola, buenas tardes, estimados.
Hello, good afternoon, distinguished governors. On behalf of the delegation of the indigenous peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean, I'd like to thank you for convening this panel to talk about the solidarity-based association, Mopampa, which I'm part of. It's made of women from the Patla intercultural organization. In 1992, it began with a group of indigenous women who produced chili peppers, but they decided to move from production to processing. Out in the field, their work wasn't valued enough nor remunerated adequately, so they decided to do something different which would enable them to claim all their rights, and a very important one at that, which is access to land. So they organized themselves and set up a company for chili peppers and decided to process it and turn it into a sauce. This was a revolution for them. It brought about a great deal of change because within the community, indigenous women weren't considered entrepreneurs. It was difficult for them to see it too. However, they took on the risk and they managed. And the second part of this story is where I come into it. When I joined the company, it was founded by my mother, who is an inspiration to me because she managed to break free of the traditional paradigm, to break the mold. She said it wasn't good enough and that things needed to change, not only for her, but also for her daughters and for those to come. So I joined the company and the organization in 2011. I began working with them on the marketing side of things because it's also very difficult for women who are starting out, who are setting up a business. So with that project, we sought to do several things: access all our rights, eliminate violence against women, forge an intergenerational dialogue between our elders and young people, which is something that has been lost in time. Traditional knowledge has fallen by the wayside. Seeds, traditional seeds, a lot of the wealth of our territory has been lost. So we figured there was no point in following a dream if we couldn't then convey that dream to the generations after us. They involved us as their daughters, and we, the second generation, are young Indigenous women who are also playing an active role in the company. And thanks to that, I'm here taking part and sharing my experience with you. We've also worked on involving the third generation, the grandchildren. And what we're trying to do through the project is to inspire the young people in our community, because they're fleeing the fields. Young people are told that they need to study and leave. They need to go to school and leave because there's nothing to do in our towns. But we're trying to change that notion. We're telling young boys and girls that if they have the opportunity to go to university, then that's great. But the reality of indigenous and rural populations is that it's a small reality. So what we're trying to do is change the notion of what it is to be a farmer. Many people think that farmers are poor, and we're trying to show them that that isn't the case. Farmers play a key role in feeding the world, a fundamental role. That is also a reality, and they need to be shown this reality. We, as young people, are responsible for feeding the world in the future, for feeding our children. Perhaps it's a bit of a burden, but it's important for us to empower young people and to provide farmers with more dignity so that they can feel that they are part of the community and so that they can feel this connection between the indigenous worldview and the rest of our sector. If we lose that link, then we become dependent on seeds provided by others. And this isn't just the case for indigenous peoples, but also the world as a whole. What will we eat if there are no more farmers? We'll have nothing left to eat. So we want women and young people to learn from our experience and to see that even though we are an indigenous rural community, we can change the world. And we can take part in events such as this at an international level and tell people that we create innovation, innovative ways to improve our lives. And I'd really like to tell young people that the world depends on us to a great extent, and that young farmers play a very important role, and it should be a dignified one. So I'd like to appeal to the world in general to give more dignity to the work of farmers, because acknowledging the work they do in feeding the world is of the utmost importance. Women too. So we need to focus on that in events such as this, where our role in the field is acknowledged. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim, it's your turn.
Good evening, Your Excellencies and IFAD governors, ladies and gentlemen. I got interested, or actually attracted to agriculture for the business side of things, as when I saw that there is a lot of opportunity to do business in agriculture, I felt that if I studied the science behind it, it would be easier for me to do the business side of things, or at least come up with entrepreneurial activities given the scientific background of the different aspects of farm to fork. So after I finished my undergraduate studies, I got introduced to a network called YPARD, which is Young Professionals for Agricultural Development. And when I served as a country, and I serve right now as a country representative, and we came up with a five-fold strategy on how we are going to promote, how we promote agriculture to young people. And it's basically that agriculture can actually be in the academe, in extension or in advisory services, in research, in policy and governance, or even in agribusiness. And this is the way we try to promote agriculture that is not just about farming. It is all these aspects from farm to fork. And so within our network, there are several colleagues of mine and members who are actually successful in how they accessed finance and markets. And one of them is my friend who is Dax. He leads a consultancy firm called Dream Agritech. And what they've done is that they've actually linked with the consulate in Dubai, and they've actually been linked to a group of overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs as we call them, and they actually came up with a program, an agreement, where OFWs who are wanting to go back into the Philippines and do livelihood programs or do business can be reintegrated into the country. And so what they've done is that OFWs can invest in farms, and Dream Agritech provides the consultancy, the advisory services in between, where Dream Agritech does the field validation, the market survey, the management services, and even the marketing for the OFW who's invested into the farm. Another colleague of mine, Irwin, who actually came up with a startup on urban agriculture where his concept is more of waste to waste. Your waste just right in your body. So farm from urban wastes that can be recycled or composted could actually become media for you to grow vegetables. And that is his startup, which he actually brought into the Future Bridging Leaders program of the Asian Institute Management and Team Energy Center, which is a bridging leadership program. And so in that program, he actually got mentoring, and he won the award. And so now he's been connected to local government units where his urban agriculture model can be piloted. Another is electronic magsasaka, or that is the Filipino term for farmer. So e-magsasaka is a startup also that was incubated in Make Sense Philippines, where they actually helped them develop and polish the business model, where now they just came from the initial ideal phase, and now they can actually execute it, and now what they call it, they are investment ready. And what they've done is that they've linked with farmer organizations where they can help market those products of farmer organizations and link them directly to the markets. Lastly, YPARD Philippines last year came up with a mentoring program which was supported by the Global Forum for Agricultural Research and YPARD Global. And what we did was we had several mentees who specialized in the various sectors that we said: academe, research, extension, policy, and business. And one of them actually focused on the business side, and she had a mentor that helped her develop her social enterprise idea, and now she's pursuing her graduate studies in the Netherlands because of that development and the polishing of that social enterprise idea. If I were to sum up all of these, the key factors that help young people access finance and markets, one is that we need an enabling environment where young people and their capacity can be built not only to the production aspect of things, but in the networking, in the business side, in the ability to network and communicate clearly to potential partners. And another is parallel seed funding and mentoring program. I do believe it is important to give and help young people start up with funding. But alongside with that, there has to be some support system, some mentoring program that goes along with these seed funding, or else it could just be another resources wasted away. So given that these are some of the success stories from the Philippines, and these are key factors which I believe IFAD with a rural youth action plan can help address, create an enabling environment, and also provide seed funding and mentoring programs that can be institutionalized in governments and even into the country's strategic or the COSOPs? Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I had, some questions that I wanted to ask them, but I want to relegate that and give you the opportunity to talk to them. If you can do it in 1 minute, I could start, here. Anyone who has a question for any of my panelists? In 1 minute? It could be a question, it could be a word of encouragement, it could be an input. Are we getting warm here? Going once? Going twice? I think they're sleeping here. Let me come to this. Oh, okay, I see a hand there. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question. Do you all see an opportunity perhaps for further networking, as Jim mentioned, so that youth to youth can create those kind of enabling environments as well as with mentors? Is there a possibility perhaps of a forum that, with the support of some of the Rome-based agencies, to continue that conversation and have some type of a network?
Okay, who would like to take that? Yep, Annie.
Thank you. I think that's a very viable suggestion, and I believe as much as the dynamics of youth may look different from maybe country or county, we really need to have more of a kind of a global sharing platform. And I think I like the idea of the proposed youth council that provides a platform for us to be able to advocate on a higher level, and then also to lobby for the people that we actually represent on the ground. So I think that would be a very good platform. But again, also the composition of the people who would be mentoring, and also like the seniors in terms of in the sector would also be very good, so we can have a very strategic kind of an engagement that will give us results and impact on the ground. Thank you.
Okay. There is another hand here. I don't see the country. You can introduce yourself in 1 minute. A question.
Okay. Mi nombre es Michael Pérez.
My name is Michael Perez.
Trabajo para Fabreto y
And I
soy
work for
delegado
Fabreto,
internacional
and
de
I'm the international
4H.
delegate of
Fui invitado
4H.
por la
Was invited
International Agri-Food
by the
Network.
International Agri-Food
Y
Network.
bueno, como mi estimada Dalí
And
estaba
as
hablando,
Dali before was
nosotros,
saying,
yo vengo de una comunidad rural y
I
hemos
also come
sido,
from a rural community.
nos han dicho desde el corazón de que nosotros debemos de ser profesionales.
Have been told
De
very
que no
earnestly
debemos
by
ser
others that we
campesinos.
must be
Bueno, yo tengo esa historia
professionals,
de
see ourselves as
que
professionals,
así
not
tenía
as
ese mal concepto,
campesinos,
pero ahora ya no.
as peasants. I had
Soy
previously
maestro y
an
eso,
erroneous conception. I no
ese mal
longer have
concepto que yo
it.
tenía
I'm
lo he
a
cambiado.
teacher. I've changed
Lo
my
he
basic
cambiado
outlook,
porque
my basic
quiero que mis
ideas.
estudiantes
I want my
cambien esa
students
manera de
also
ver
to
y
change
regresen
their mentality.
¿Dónde deben de regresar?
And to
Al
go back
¿Cómo deben
where?
de
To go
regresar?
back to the fields. And how should they be going back to the fields? Well, through the organizations or private institutions. Fabreto is implementing different types of programs.
De educación, el
One
cual
of these is
hace que el estudiante se enamore de la
program
agricultura.
helping
¿Cómo?
young
Por ejemplo,
students fall in love with
si
agriculture.
comparamos la secundaria
And how do they
de mi país,
do
hay dos
that?
tipos de secundaria.
In my
La
country,
secundaria
for
donde
instance,
yo
the two
imparto y
different
la
types of
secundaria
secondary schools. The first is the type I
que
teach
lleva
in, and then there's a
el
second
gobierno.
type, which is
Pero si comparamos los chavalos
run
o
by
los
the
muchachos que
government.
están saliendo de
And if you think of
nuestra
a
secundaria,
young person who is
están más comprometidos con el campo.
leaving
¿Cómo?
secondary schools,
Porque
we can
se
help them
han
become much
trabajado
more
con diferentes
committed, much
tipos
more
de
engaged with
cursos.
the
Lleva la
with
secundaria, pero al
agriculture.
lado lleva el
They
currículo.
will
Cualquier
follow
tipo de
secondary
currículo.
school, but
Por
also
ejemplo,
have additional
cursos de
curriculum
apicultura,
studies. They can do
cursos
courses in
de procesamiento de
agriculture,
alimentos,
in food
cursos
processing,
de elaboración de
courses, for
abonos.
instance, in
Entonces,
fertilizer fertilizer treatment. And so all of this has made it possible for our young people to start
Bueno, y en
changing
el caso de eso,
their mindset.
digamos que necesitamos también de que
And we also
las
need
empresas o las
businesses,
organizaciones den
other
créditos, pero den
organizations
créditos de un fondo revolvente.
to grant
Fabreto da
credit through
fondos,
revolving
da
funds.
préstamos,
We,
pero
for
no
instance,
pide intereses. Entonces el joven se
offer
siente
loans without
comprometido
interest,
y
and
digamos
this
si prestó
facilitates the path for
$200,
people who are
ejemplo,
committed.
él va a
For
regresar
instance,
$200, pero hay un problema.
there may be a
¿De qué me sirve que me
$200
presten el
loan,
dinero si no
and
tengo el
$200
canal de cómo vender ese producto?
loan may be
¿Cómo lo
returned
hago?
as such, but there's the issue
Digo,
of market
Thank you. Let's
access.
keep it short. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think it was not a question, but he was really adding, with the experiences of young people. Thank you very much. I need to give, this audience a chance to speak in 1 minute. Bhutan, thank you.
Thank you. I fully agree that in the agriculture working system, there's a high potentiality for the youth to participate, and youths actually could become the leaders in setting examples for our farmers actually to get encouraged in farming. But then for the youths, especially the educated youth, once they go through the school and the colleges, then it becomes quite difficult for the youths to get into the hardship of the farming life. So for that, in all the processes of the farming, right from production, then the post-harvest management and marketing, it all needs to be mechanized. But then for mechanization processes for countries like Bhutan, it becomes a costly factor. So unless the funding agencies like IFAD come in to support for mechanization of the agriculture processes, right from tilling of the agriculture fields to processing industries, and then later on the marketing, it becomes quite difficult for countries like Bhutan to engage youth. Although the government very much is interested in engaging the youths, but it becomes, the resources scarcity makes it difficult for governments to engage youth. So how supportive your governments in encouraging you all in in engaging the youths in this agricultural production and the marketing process? Thank you.
Okay, who would like to take that? How supporting is your government in terms of, supporting the youth? And I would like you to keep it short because I want to engage my participants here at another level. So let's just keep it short.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Yeah, actually in Cameroon, for example, the government recently launched a 3-year special plan for young people in the agricultural domain, whereby with the youth advisory, National Youth Advisory Board, they map out best and attractive programs and innovations, and later on, they go through a screening process, and afterwards, the young person who qualifies is actually funded, given a startup capital to invest and then to carry on and employ. And this actually worked a lot, and it employs a lot of other young people in the whole sector. And to come up with the issue of post-harvest losses, I think most of the times we, as young people, most of the times we produce before identify the market. But to address that, we've come up with some programs whereby we advocate and make sure that young people actually survey the market, try to identify what the community needs before they produce. That actually addresses the issue of post-harvest losses and increase productivity and profitability in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Okay. I will encourage that as we go for reception, you can grab one of them to expand so that they can share more experiences with you. I would like to take the last 15 minutes to engage you in this way. Since morning, we have been hearing about the call, to engage youth, the call to increase, access to finance for young people. You also heard the stories here. I have a question for you. Yes, I have a question for you. I would like you to take just 2 minutes to reflect on what you want to do or what you want to change in your countries in light of the discussions that we had. Maybe there is that policy that you think, maybe if I change this policy or if I introduce, this initiative and the like. Let us think of, some actionable ideas that we would like to implement in our countries. We have a piece of paper in front of you, like this. I would like you to reflect individually and write it down, please, so that we can actually capture that. You don't necessarily have to write your name, but if you want to write your name, it's okay. What are those 2 ideas that you had from our panelists here, but also throughout the day, where you say, this is something that I would like to implement in my home country? 2 minutes to reflect. I would like to see everybody taking a pen and a piece of paper and jotting down those ideas. What are those 2 ideas that you are encouraged to do or to change in your country? A piece of paper? Yes, you write down. If you don't have a piece of paper, there are pieces of papers. Just write those ideas. What is it that you want to do differently? What is it that you want to change or introduce in your country? It could be a program, it could be an initiative, it could be a policy, towards, increasing the youth, access to finance and other productive resources. I know we might not all have a chance to share our ideas, but I would like you to leave that piece of paper there. We will collect it with my colleagues so that we see some of the ideas that are actually coming out. What are those 2 ideas that you want to implement, to change, or to do differently? Okay. Looking at my time, I can take, a few inputs. I saw a hand there. Do you want to share what you wrote on your piece of paper? Anyone who wants to share what you wrote on your piece of paper? Yes? Do you want to share with the audience or not? No. Okay. If I can read it. Okay. Anyone who wants to share? Kenya.
Thank you very much. The future.
The future, thank you, yes.
For sharing your experiences and the enthusiasm that you have in this sector. It has come out in the discussion. I think what we need to look at in encouraging the youth to really engage in agriculture is to make agriculture clean, in quotes. Because for a long time, the youth have, we look at agriculture as some work that is not very interesting, not clean, and what have you. So more use of the ICT and other technologies, which in Kenya, my colleague from the county will be able to share that experience. And as we are implementing our agriculture sector transformation growth strategy, there are a lot of opportunities along the value chains because the country has been mapped into economic hubs, and there will be different enterprises, and all the infrastructure, including the ICT, will be implemented. So hopefully the youth will be really encouraged The other one is engaging the youth in agriculture early enough. And we used to have, in Kenya, we used to have, in the syllabus, we used to have agriculture and home science as compulsory. At some point, it was optional. But the curriculum is being reviewed because when they understand, first of all, even the nutritional value of some of the foods or how to even grow the agronomic practices at an early age, it will create interest. The other one is creating networks, and I would encourage Anne for that county-specific strategy. I would encourage you to share with your colleagues in the other counties so that we sort of build capacity within the country and even beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person who would like to share their actionable ideas? Benin?
Thank you, and thank you for giving me this chance to share the perspective of Benin with you on youth entrepreneurship. My country, Benin, has adopted a number of very important reforms in this area, promoting entrepreneurship for smallholder farmers. And I would mention in this connection also the curriculum that has been tailored to promoting entrepreneurship. We have a fund for agricultural promotion that facilitates access to credit in a way that is suitable for agriculture, and we have special windows that support youth entrepreneurship in the areas and supporting agribusiness. We also have another program for mechanization of agriculture that is respectful for the environment, and there is a results-oriented organization that will be working to implement this program. Thank you.
Merci. I will take one last intervention. I don't see the country. Is that Sudan? Yes.
In the name of God, the All-Merciful, the Compassionate, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to share with you the experience of Sudan in terms of capacity building for young people in the field of agriculture. First of all, I would like to insist on investing in the youth in the rural areas. It's very important to build capacities of those young people in rural areas. Sudan was one of the first African countries who obtained the agreement of the African Development Bank for a specific loan having to do with the development of capacities for young people inside rural areas. And the amount received was divided equally, 50% for men, 50% for young women. And this represented a huge opportunity for agricultural development. The African Development Bank was of paramount importance in this new initiative. This also presents opportunities for young people, work opportunities. This also allows for young people to have access to work. It allows also for young people to remain in rural areas instead of migrating to cities. This is an opportunity. It can solve many problems having to do with unemployment and having to do with people leaving rural areas to go to urban areas. This could be one of the solutions. Thank you.
In the interest of time, I'm going to, stop the inputs there, and I would like to give my panelists in 30 seconds. Really, 30 seconds, because I want us to finish here at 7 o'clock sharp. 30 seconds, what is your last word in 30 seconds? Jim, I'll start with you.
Thank you again, Hilami. I think one of the biggest contributions that IFAD could do and the different member states could actually do is to support a youth council for Rome-based agencies where we can help and advocate influence policies that are youth-oriented and that can empower young people not only to be tokens, but really to participate in the process of designing policy, advocating, formulating, and implementing certain policies. Thank you.
Okay. Dali, in 30 seconds.
Ok, bueno, quiero aprovechar este espacio.
I'd like to take this opportunity and the fact that we have representatives from all over the world here and say that you have to think about reality from the point of view of the young people. Very often the programs are limited in terms of the access that we can have to the programs. There may be legal terms that we cannot meet, and this leads to other complications. I also would like to highlight the fact that we've heard people talk about different countries. It's important to look at the development of projects with young people starting from the local level, because very often you have governments coming in with innovative projects, but that do not have the necessary connection with young people and with the local reality, and that can create real problems. Therefore, it's important to engage in dialogue for governments and young people to start with what is their own community, so that young people really have ownership of these projects, and that will ensure it's a successful project.
Thank you. And in 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. Mine would be to request, because I know in this room we have the decision makers and we have heads of government. Mine is to request on behalf of the youth, because we have challenges that are really tough on the ground. When you look at the situations on the ground, they are not appealing at all. Mine is to request, when we go back home, kindly let us find a way of supporting these young people in our own countries. And then also again to request that at times I believe we can also work with the youth who are actually running successful programs, because it is only in investing in those ones who are already in the trade that others will actually realize that they have role models that they can learn from. Other than that, mine is to say thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you. Divine, the last one in 30 seconds.
Yeah, agricultural finance is a key component to address as far as policymakers are concerned. And then the next thing, we need to actually ensure that the outcome of this panel should be followed up at country levels, because most of the times these actions are not being taken. So let's translate this into concrete action back home. Thank you very much.
Okay. 2 minutes. I want to stick to my time. While I thank my panelists, please may I get those actionable, yes, please, may you help me collect those actionable ideas. Yes, walk around and collect. Yes, I'm getting, very interesting, ideas. On that note, I would like to thank the future. The future is here, and when we thank the future, they need the biggest round of applause. The biggest round of applause for our future. Okay, thank you very much. I kept my promise. I said I'm going to let you go at 7 o'clock sharp, and it's 1 minute to 7. Thank you very much. We're closing the session. Let's continue to engage, during the reception while we collect those pieces of papers. Thank you very much. Thank you.